I am very pleased to be able to introduce Kelly Schulte. She's a mom who had a daughter who had some health issues, and she had to learn how to feed her child differently to resolve those health problems. And it wasn't just one health problem, it wasn't just one doctor, it was many doctors trying to deal with the health issues. So that's very exciting because that's exactly why we're all here, trying to learn how to treat our health issues a little differently. Kelly is the owner of Kingdom Kids Nutrition, and I think she can take it from there because it's all great information. Thank you so much.
So it's going to be really good because I have so many issues trying to get here that you always know it's going to be really good. So I have 19 copies because our copier broke when I was copying it. There's no more 24-hour places around here I can find. So if you are with somebody, like a couple or anything, if you would just take one, there's like 20 copies. We should be pretty close. And these are just to take notes on, so if you have a notebook and you don't want that, you don't have to. So I'm just going to jump right in, and I talk really fast, so that'll be good, so we can get through everything. But if you have a question, I want this to be very interactive, because I want you to be able to walk away and be like, oh, I can do this, and not just like, you get a lot of information that you're like, oh, that was great, but I'm overwhelmed and I don't even know what to do. So if you have questions while we're going through, feel free to interrupt, and we'll go through whatever it is that you need to address. So I'm going to quickly, in about 2 minutes, give you our entire history. I wrote a book called Kingdom Kids Nutrition, and the whole first part is 70 pages it took to explain our story with my oldest daughter. So here is the nutshell of what happened the first, like, 6 years, 7 years ago. 10 months, we went to the pediatrician. She was having recurring ear infections, asthma, all that stuff. They started her on a nebulizer. By 18 months, she started to have these major meltdowns and tantrums. They'd last anywhere 45 minutes to an hour, 2 hours. And then it kind of was like once a day, then all of a sudden it was a couple times a day, and then sometimes we spent the whole day just going from one to the next. And so I brought her to the doctor, the pediatrician, and he just kept saying, you just don't have strong enough guidelines, and you need to put her on timeout, and you need to do this and this and this. And I'm like, yeah, I did it. I put her on the chair, and for 3 hours, she wouldn't say sorry. She sat on the chair for 3 hours when she was 3. The funny thing is, 2 days ago, my toddler sat on the chair for 45 minutes before he would say sorry. I'm like, no, I did this with the first, I'm not doing it with the fifth, no way. So, but he finally did say sorry. So anyway, at 18 months, she also was referred to an eye specialist because one of her eyes was crossing just a little bit. And so she started glasses and patching one of the strong eyes. So she was seeing an eye doctor. At 4, she started with a psychiatrist, or a psychologist, excuse me, the one you talked to. And because the behavioral meltdowns were just getting worse and worse and worse. And I felt like I was the one really going to the psychologist because she would just play and they'd talk to me and they'd go home and nothing changed. So at 5, I got a second opinion. I went to a new pediatrician who was a woman. The first one was a man, not that it makes any difference, but this woman came from a background similar to ours, so she kind of was like, oh no, these things should not be going on, and started to refer us to other doctors. So that's when we went to physical therapy because she tippy-toe walked everywhere she went. And we watch a video now, and she's like doing karate and like point ballerina. And we're like, how did we not know that wasn't normal? And so she did casting and bracing on her legs for about a year to get those Achilles tendons to stretch back out. We were going to the psychologist still, and then she sent us to the behavior specialist because we had one major incident, and I'm like, this is not normal. I taught kindergarten, she was in kindergarten. We have to do something. And we didn't know what else to do because we were seeing all these doctors and no one had any information. She sent us to the behavior specialist, which I went from one office to the next. I met with him. He never examined her. He never saw her. And I left with a prescription for Zoloft. Nice. And so, and at that point, I was like, I don't know what else to do. And we went home and like in the pit of my stomach, I knew it wasn't the right thing to do, but I didn't know what else to do. So my husband and I just prayed like that it wouldn't take 2 or 3 weeks to work, but like the next day, like if this is what we're supposed to do, I want results tomorrow. And she woke up like singing and in the shower, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's like happy, and she didn't have any meltdowns that day. And so we're like, okay, so for that season, it was what we were supposed to do. It gave us a Band-Aid to get us through until later. However, not the best solution, but we didn't know anything else. So after that, we're going to the psychologist weekly, we're going to physical therapist weekly, we're doing the casting, the bracing, the stretches, And then I found a pediatrician who was a Christian, so I got a third opinion. So with her, we ended up with occupational therapy as well. So then we started addressing food, eating issues, and all these other things with occupational therapy. And it was all really great when we were there, but I'm like, when we go home, none of it works. And the medications wear off every like 3-4 weeks. They upped the dosage. By 6, she was on an adult dosage of Lexapro. Then they switched it to Zoloft, and then switched it to Lexapro. And then she was having a meltdown. My in-laws were there, my husband was traveling. She's in a room throwing a complete fit, and I'm reading the package, the warning. I'm like, so she's on this medication, and it could cause suicide, it could cause this, and she's still blowing a fit. I'm like, okay, forget it, we can't do this. And so I went to a MOPS meeting, and one of the moms was like, the mentor mom got up and did her little spiel, and I had the worst attitude ever. And she's like, if anybody needs prayer, I'm like, well, yeah, I could try that. So I go running back to her after she was done, and I'm just break down, I'm crying, telling her all this stuff going on, and she's like, oh, well, let's pray. I'm like, no, you don't understand, this is bigger than that, had no concept. And so she prayed, and then afterwards, she had gone through almost exactly the same story I had 20 years earlier. So even less resources than I had. So she literally mentored me natural health. I'm petrified of chiropractors, all this stuff, by the way, I was raised, and she literally took me to the office, bought me my cute basket for my supplements, because she's like, the only thing good in your life right now is going to be these supplements, or this basket. And I'm like, really? And she was true. Cute basket was really key for some reason. And so all the doctors at 7, when I prayed with this woman, had said, there's nothing we can do. Psychiatrist, psychologist, occupational therapist, physical therapist, she had a neuropsych evaluation, all this stuff. Everybody said, nothing you can do, you have to live with it. I'm like, no. I told my pediatrician, I'm like, at 13, you will read Mother Killed by daughter, because it was escalating at such a pace. And so it was a dead end, but then it was not the end for us. So the prayer was the biggest thing. We started declaring over her what we wanted to see, what God created her to be. Started praying over her every day. When we went to the chiropractor, we had to severely change our diet, literally threw out my whole pantry and had to buy new stuff. Went to the co-op, sat in the co-op crying in the aisle, $500 worth of stuff, have no idea how to make it, left the cart. All the frozen goods, everything in the middle of the store, left. I'm overwhelmed. And then we started chiropractic care as well. And then the nutritional support was all the different things we did for supplements, emotional healing, that kind of stuff. So that was kind of our cycle of healing, which is funny because we keep going back to it. We get one layer of healing, and we're going to Rob right now because my daughter's been having gut issues. I'm like, we did this already though. We've done this. And he's like, no, just another layer. But now all this stuff is coming out, and she's stronger, where she wasn't strong enough 7 years ago to deal with what she's dealing with now. So we went back to the prayer declaration, and then I don't get overwhelmed. So that's kind of it. As we changed our diet, we saw effects on all of our family. That's our whole crew. So Hannah's the oldest. Lily, who's right here, and then Matthew, those two. So Lily is your la la la, life is good, maybe I'll do my math, but nah, this is more interesting, kind of that la la. And Matthew's bouncing off the walls. That's how it was until we went gluten-free, because Michael, who's a little guy next to Matthew, when he was born, it's a whole long story, but severely allergic to gluten. Ended up in the hospital a couple times. So I quit eating gluten because I was nursing him. And then he was great. So then after he went off gluten, or when I quit nursing him, I started eating gluten, and I went to my chiropractor. I'm like, I need my drugs, because I had been on drugs for anxiety and depression, so all of it kind of made sense with my daughter, prior. And she's like, oh, let's just test you. And I'm like, for what? She's like, gluten. I'm like, really? And she tested me, and sure enough, I couldn't eat it. I'm like, no, this can't be. And this is 2 years we've been doing this stuff. I'm like, no, that can't be right. And so I would not eat it for 3 or 4 weeks. I'd eat it and crash, anxiety, depression. No, that can't be, And so finally I decided, okay, quit putting your family through this and quit eating gluten. So I quit, and then everybody quit, because I went and listened to a doctor speak, and he said there was a study on ADHD. And I wouldn't say they were full-blown ADHD, but they definitely were struggling with it. And he said 75 kids had ADHD, they were diagnosed with it, and they put them on gluten-free diet, all 75, in 3 months were completely fine. So I'm like, I think it'll benefit them. And the preschool teacher said to me, Matthew's preschool teacher, did you do something with his diet? Because he used to be engaged, but he'd always be doing all this on top of being engaged, and now he just sits peacefully. And I'm like, yep, gluten. So it has positively affected our entire family by changing our diet. And then little Benjamin, he's just been healthy the whole time because he got to benefit from all of it. So we're going to jump into the food from here. here. So this is how I got into all the foodie stuff. So I'm going to just let you look at these for a minute because I'm not going to read each one. But can anybody, from looking at the ingredients, all three of these are the same item. Can anybody tell me what they are? What's your guess as to what it is?
Is the first one like a granola bar or a fiber bar?
Close. Chocolate chip, yep, all three of these are chocolate chip cookies. Okay? So, if we go here, what I really want to talk to you about is nourishment versus anti-nourishment. Because everything you put in your body either brings life and nourishes your body, or it actually causes your body as an anti-nourishment. Your body has to fight in some way, like to get the toxins out or whatever, and it actually causes your body to have destruction to it. And so, like, God created food for us to eat, and He didn't create, like, genetically modified food. Like, man has done things to certain foods that God's created and made it hard for our bodies. So the nourishment is kind of like God's food, the way He created it. The anti-nourishment is stuff like man has tinkered with it, and now it's not as healthy for us. So if you look here, the one on the left hand, the rice one, that was the Betty Crocker gluten-free cookie mix. Because people always say to me, well, I'm gluten-free, but I didn't lose weight, and I did this, and I, well, if you're eating those cookies, you're not going to lose weight, because it's just like eating the Pillsbury one. The Pillsbury one is the other one there, and it's actually worse because it has the hydrogenated oils and stuff in it as well. And then if you look over on the nourishment side, that's a cookie you just ate. And in there, I can go back, almond flour, your body can use that because it's made out of almonds. Baking soda, sea salt, that's questionable. You use the pink salt from their office and it'll actually help your stomach. We've been using it and my kids have been, or my daughter who's having stomach issues, the pink salt has made a huge difference in her stomach being calmer, I think, is one of the things we've added. Coconut oil is a good oil that nourishes your body. Maple syrup is way better than refined sugar. Then your eggs, or you can use a flax egg. You can use either one, which I can tell you about that later. And then the gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free chocolate chips. So most of the stuff in that your body can actually use and benefit from, where the other two, there's nothing it can benefit from. So if you try to keep your foods more on the nourishment side, then your body's going to be stronger and healthier. And like everyone says, well, it's so hard. Like, I don't have time. Well, I made four batches in one in my big bowl, and then I divided into four, and like the one I put craisins, and I put coconut and stuff in it, and macadamia nuts, and then the other three I put different stuff in it, and then I roll them up, and then I wrap them in parchment paper, and I put them in the freezer. So all I have to do is exactly what the Pillsbury does. I take it out and I chop it up, and if I want them to look nice, I have to roll them and then put them on, but if I don't care what they look like, you can just plop them on the pan, and in 10 minutes I have cookies that are fresh baked, just like Pillsbury. So there's a lot of things you can do that are quick and easy. So I'm going to talk to you about, there's a whole bunch of foods in my book. I go through like 12 different foods you really should get out of your body, but we're going to just talk about like the four big ones that I see right now. The biggest one for us was corn syrup. It's kind of like the hardest one to get out, but when you get that out, you get a lot of other junk out too. So it has a benefit of when you get corn syrup out of your diet, then other things. Corn syrup, of course, affects your blood sugar. That's obvious. It's a toxin to your body, and the other thing that it does is that there's a hormone in your body called leptin, and that turns off when you eat corn syrup. So that's why you can eat a whole bag of Doritos and still not be full. And with kids, the artificial sweeteners, or the MSG, you can see the artificials. I just kind of lumped them all together. You have your artificial sweeteners, your MSG, your flavors, your colors. All of those things are basically neurotoxins, which means it affects your brain. So every time you ingest it, you know, like MSG is an excitotoxin, so it makes your brain fire really rapidly and causes issues there. Colors have been food coloring, like Matthew, if he has red food coloring, he'll be bouncing off the walls. Like, you know, so a lot of the ADHD kind of stuff has been connected to food coloring. And Diet Coke, all of those NutraSweet, your body really has a hard time getting them out of your system, and they affect your neurological functioning. One story I had when we went to the chiropractor, we couldn't do sugar, because she was actually allergic to the white sugar. She still is, but, and so we just didn't do any sugars, and it was like Valentine's Day, and she was going to school, and I'm like, oh, well, I could send just a few treats. So I went and got like the candy hearts that were sugar-free, and they called me at like noon and like, Hannah's really sick. And I'm like, what? And I go get her and she is sick as a dog. And I'm like, what? And I take her to the chiropractor. I'm like, I don't know why she's so sick. And they're like, well, what was different in her diet? Well, she just had these candy hearts and this other chocolate, and they were sugar-free, so I don't know why she's sick. And they're like, there's artificial sweeteners in it. I'm like, oh, like I had no idea they were even bad. But her body, because we had been eating well, just purged it all out. So that's what happens now. Like if my kids do go somewhere and they like have something that's pretty intense, like a lot of food coloring or something, they just get home and up it comes because their bodies just go, nope, we don't want that in there. So that's kind of a good. But anyway, so those, the artificials just really affect your neurological functioning. Hydrogenated fats and rancid fats, what I mean by that is like all your, like if you go to Burger King, like fried foods and all that, what happens is a hydrogenated fat and rancid fats are like, you take like an olive oil and you get it too hot and it smokes, like in all the cooking shows. It's actually rancid, which means it causes cancer. It becomes carcinogenic because the molecules change and whatnot. And so it's harmful to your body. And so you don't want to be putting all of that in. So we're going to talk about the opposite of that and good fats that your body can utilize. These types of fats, they're stored in your body because your body has a harder time getting rid of them because it doesn't use them up. And then your refined grains is the other one. And that's glutinous and non-glutinous because a lot of the white rice flours and all of those have no nutrients in it. You might as well eat the white flour. And if you look, you can see the picture, there's the grain, like that's what wheat looks like. So how does it get to the white? You know, they take off all the nutrient parts and then they bleach it and all of those things. So then your body has to deal with all of that instead of the whole grain kind of things. The Fabulous Five, these are the ones that bring nourishment to your body. So they actually help you to be strong and healthy. So the first one is water, living water, like it's in the Bible everywhere, living water. It's the main thing our body is made out of. 80% of our body is water. Our brain needs water to function. That's when I started teaching, it was like a new thing for water bottles to come in the classroom because like no one ever did. And all this research came out like kids are doing so much better on test scores because they're drinking water. So all of a sudden we had water bottles in the classroom. Well, because our brains were hydrated, they could actually think better. So it's critical. You should drink half your body weight in ounces every day. So each one of my kids, I know it seems like a lot of water, but once you get doing it, it's not. Each of my kids has a water bottle that's the size of their weight, like half their body weight. And if I couldn't find one exactly, I have a mark on it, and I fill it to that, and they have to drink it by bedtime. That's how we started. Like when we started, like by bedtime, this has to be gone. And my oldest was the hardest to get all of it in her, because she used to like get nauseous from water. And then we found out if we heated it a little bit, that she could drink it. So she would drink hot water. So instead of having tea, she'd just drink hot water. Now she doesn't have to do that. She just drinks room temperature water. But everyone, and so for a while, that's what we did. And then at bedtime, it'd be chug, 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 and then go to the bathroom all night. But then they finally got it. And now, I mean, they drink water like out of control. They just drink a ton of water. And so that's a really good habit to get your kids in. People come to our house, and it's like, I forget to get something else for them to drink because all we have is water. And rice milk and coconut, not rice milk, coconut milk and almond milk. I'm like, or coffee, because I do have coffee. And I have tea. So I always am offering people tea because I'm like, I don't have anything other than water. And people are like, well, what do your kids drink? I'm like, water. But do they do juice? No. Do they do milk? No. What do they drink? Water. You know, that's what we drink. And they're totally used to that. So anywhere they go, all they drink is water. And so good fats is the other thing. And I have to tell you, like Hannah being 14 still has the memory of Oreos and that stuff. So she's the one who kind of struggles the most. But now that she's 14, she kind of knows the effects too when she eats it, so she kind of doesn't. And my other ones like have no clue on a lot of things. Like my daughter was going to a soccer, like end of the year soccer party, and she's like, I don't want the snack. And I'm like, why? And she's like, because it's ice cream sandwiches and I don't want ice cream on bread. That sounds so gross. And I'm like, oh, you're in for a treat, honey. You know? Oh, radar. So it's kind of fun. So if you start them off that way, it's harder to transition, but it's totally doable. But then when they get older, like my daughter came up to me the other day, she's like, did you know that the gloss you're using has lead in it? I'm like, She's like the total makeup queen, and I am not, obviously. And I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, I was researching and this has led. So like, if you instill that value, like, she doesn't really have, well, she has a value for food, but now like it's transitioned into like, she figured out toxins go on her face and you know. And so it's really fun to teach them the value because that's how they end up actually doing it themselves. Fruits and vegetables, obviously, are pretty much a no-brainer that we need to eat a whole bunch of fruits and vegetables. I just heard someone talking the other day and he was saying that Americans have it wrong. Our main course should be our vegetables and our side course should be our meat because we don't need that much meat. You only need the size of your palm a day in 24 hours. It's all your body can really handle. And it has to be good quality meat, we'll go into next. Quality animal products, so that's like your grass-fed beef, or organic beef. And like people are always like, grass-fed beef, that's so expensive. I get mine for $4 a pound because I have a farmer and I get a quarter, half whole cow, and it's $4 a pound. It's amazing, it's delicious. So you can do it very inexpensively. And like I just bought a family pack of chicken breast at Lakelands, and my friend was over and she's like, I can't believe you're spending $42 on chicken. But when I broke it up, it was 5 meals. I'm like, that's $8. I can't go to Cub and buy chicken for my family for $8 with those little chicken breasts, you know? So I'm like, it costs like $5 for one of those, like $15. So I'm actually saving $7 by buying good chicken. So buying in bulk, those kinds of things, which we'll talk about. And then raw nuts is another really good thing because it's good brain food because it's got the good fats and it's also good protein. And you want to do raw nuts. There's a whole bunch you can do with soaking them and all other kinds of stuff. But if you go with raw, and it might be a process, like don't try it, like you go and buy like all raw nuts and you don't eat them. Like buy nuts you'll eat and then work your way down to raw nuts. You know, those kinds of things. Quality versus quantity. So a lot of people, like you have that feeling, especially if you eat a lot of carbs and gluten, you don't have that full feeling when you start to change your diet. You know, and so you have to kind of make it through a week or two of just not feeling full, but knowing your body has the nourishment it needs. Because like every morning I like to do a smoothie, and that's all I have because I just pack it up with a whole bunch of vegetables and fruit and protein powder, whatever I want in there, and I drink that and it lasts me till lunch and I'm not hungry. And then I usually do a salad for lunch and then I do dinner, whatever our family's eating, and that's kind of what I eat. And because like my salad, I have a bunch of veggies and that kind of stuff, and I'll snack on fruit in between. And then it just, when you actually eat, because people will say, well, it's so expensive to eat well, but if you actually like going and buying gluten-free pancakes, yeah, you can break the bank buying that stuff that you're not getting any nourishment from. And you can juice something or make a smoothie or whatever, and it's a lot more reasonable, and you don't need to eat as much. Oops, I forgot to go. Some of the things that you can do too is growing on your own. So like we pulled out our flower beds last summer. We just pulled them both out and put all vegetables in, and I was canning out of those little gardens. We had kale till November, like fresh kale, garbage bags full. So like you think like, oh, I don't have enough room. It's amazing what you can get out of a little garden. We froze beans, we froze peppers, so you can get a ton. And if you go to the farmer's market, you can get all your plants really reasonably and that kind of stuff. You can start from seed. It's a fun thing. Eating local is really key because you can, once a vegetable or fruit is picked off the vine, it starts to lose nutrients. So like if you have a local farmer's market, those are going to be the most nutrient-dense foods that you can eat. And eating for life instead of satisfaction. When you shift your mindset, that's actually when things start to get a lot easier. We're like, I'm eating to actually survive and be strong and healthy. I went and listened to this doctor speak who was talking about having an environment where cancer can't grow. And I was like, I never thought of that. Because he had had cancer and was healed of it. And he's like, because I allowed my body to have an area in which, you know, the cancer could grow. And so I was like, that's really interesting. So shifting your mindset, like, I'm eating to be strong and healthy and have energy and be, you know, do what I need to do. I'm not eating to be full and to like, yummy, I enjoyed the chocolate. And you can still do some of those things. So nutrient-rich over feeling full. And then why do we eat healthy? These are just pictures of a bunch of my friends. Because we want to eat healthy so that we can live a long, healthy life with the ability to do what God has called us to do. Because we all have a calling on our life, and if we're sick and going to the doctor all the time and doing these things, we can't do what we're asked to do. So Heidi Baker is up in the right-hand corner, my friend down here, and Andrea, they both do missions. One's in Africa, one's in Cambodia. And like, they both, I don't know so much about Haiti, but I know like they eat really, really well, and now they're in these countries where they don't have an option of what they eat, but they are strong and healthy and are doing great. And then Jordan Rubin and Dr. Josh, and my friend Ann, who's a teacher, she like totally just shifted. She was way overweight, changed her diet, and then was having more energy and feeling better. And then up at Teen Challenge is one of the places I teach, and all of those women who are changing their diets and lifestyles, like when they go back into the world, are going to be stronger and healthier to do what they're called to do. And then raising our families and doing whatever it is that we're asked to do. So a lot of people talk to me about like it's so expensive, which it can be, but there are a lot of things you can do to make it affordable. One is menu planning. Menu planning has been the key to actually being successful in budget. And I have a menu plan, and I was going to copy them off for you. So if you put your name on this little list right here, I can email it to you, and then you'll get it with the shopping list and everything that goes with it. So you menu, or the recipes that go with it. So menu planning is the key, and then you make your shopping list, and you actually only buy what's on your list. Because it's when you start like, oh, those look good, and that looks good, and that looks good. Especially at the co-op, that looks good, gets very, very expensive. So if you just go in and you buy what's on your list, you find out what stores have the best deals on your stuff, and then go from there. Homemade versus processed, like homemade cookies are way cheaper than buying gluten-free cookies, and they have nutrients. So you get the double bang for your buck there. Stick to the basics. Like, don't try to be fancy with everything. Like, we always like, people are like, what do you do for gluten-free? I'm like, meat, potato, and 2 veggies. Super easy meal. Throw in a chicken breast, make a salad, and then do some roasted broccoli, and some other things, sweet potatoes. Super easy and very cost effective. Making an Italian meal gluten-free with, goat cheese and blah, blah, blah can get very expensive. So those are sometimes. Like for us, pizza is a sometimes food because our pizzas are expensive. They're more expensive than just doing a chicken dinner or even a beef dinner. And then for, what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, hot dogs. For us, hot dogs is a $20 meal because our hot dogs cost $10 a package. So, but they're meat. They're steak hot dogs, really. They're just ground beef. They're not anything added to them. They're grass-fed, and they're actually healthy. So sticking to the basics. The Dirty Dozen, if you go to Environmental Workers Group, and I have a link on my blog to it too, they every year or so test fruits and vegetables, and they put out a list of the Dirty Dozen, which are the 12 vegetables and fruits that have the highest amounts of concentration of pesticides and that kind of stuff. By eliminating just those 12, you eliminate a lot of the toxic load you take on. And so it's a really affordable piece where you go, oh, I'm just going to get these 12 always organic and buy everything else conventional. And then they have the Clean 15, which those like hardly absorb any of the pesticides. So those are the ones that are safer to buy conventional. So if you're like, and just remember, like, I love that website too because they say it's better to eat vegetables and fruits than none at all. You know what I mean? There's things you can do if like your budget only allows you to buy conventional, then do. Like I remember one time I went to the store and the organic lettuce looked horrendous. It was like all wilty, and I bought it. And then the lettuce right next to it was conventional, looked beautiful, and I was like, no, but we need to do this. And I went home and I was talking to my mentor friend Robin, who helped me through everything. I'm like, yeah, our salad was gross. It's like all wilty. She's like, no, conventional, good food, is better than rotten organic. So, you have to make good choices. So buy in season is super good. Because number one, God created us to eat a certain way at a certain time of year. Like right now, if you look what's in season, you have your squash, you have your sweet potatoes, you have oranges, mangoes, all of that stuff that your body needs those vitamins. Like mangoes are high in vitamin A, helps your immune system. Oranges, red peppers, those are high in vitamin C, which helps your immune system. The squashes and all those things keep you warm in the winter. You need those. You don't need them in the summer. And guess what? Right now in the co-op, they're about the same price as if you go to Cub. I went to Cub for the first time in so long, and I was shocked by the prices. I left. I'm like, wow. I could not believe how expensive some of the stuff was, and to know that what's in there and what I'm paying for it. So anyway, and then in the summer, all your berries come back and your spring greens, and that's all detoxifying. So you get to detoxify from the winter. And so if you eat how God created it to be, then you actually will be healthier and stronger because it's what your body needs at that time of year. And your costs will go down because of the fact that it's very comparable to the grocery store when you shop in season. Now, if you try to buy strawberries right now at the co-op, they're $9 a pound. So not, you're not gonna do that unless you have a special dessert. But let's say you are making a dessert and you need strawberries to go on top of it, like I make this chocolate cake thing and you put strawberries on the top. Well, if you buy them frozen, organic, at this time of year, they're much more affordable, than if you buy the fresh ones. And so buying frozen when it's out of season. Or if you're on a really tight budget, a lot of times the frozen vegetables are cheaper than the fresh. So sometimes that's you can mix it up a little bit that way. If you can buy straight from the farmers and the farmers markets, that's the best. We get all of our stuff a lot of our stuff straight from the farmer. Buying in bulk, and I just started being part of a buying club. I was super overwhelmed by it. It's so easy. I'm like, why didn't I do this a long time ago? So I got like organic almond flour for like under $5 a pound, and it's like anywhere from 7 to 11 at the co-op and stuff like that. So all of a sudden my grocery bill went way down, and I don't want to know because I have so much. And then keeping it simple. And menu planning allows you to buy in bulk, because I have a 1-month winter menu plan. So each 4 weeks is a different menu. And I have my shopping list and everything that go with that. So then I know how much almond milk or how much almond flour I need a month, so I can buy that in bulk, and those types of things. And then just keeping it simple. The simpler it is, the more successful you'll be. Being a smart shopper, shop the outside aisles. Less processed food that you buy, the cheaper your bill will be. Become a member. If you go to the co-op, become a member. You get 5% off a month, which doesn't seem like much, but if you do, like, I have stuff I like at Lakelands and stuff I like at Valley Natural, so I'm a member at both, and I drive up to Lakelands once a month, and I get what I can't get at Valley Natural, and I buy, like, whatever I need for a month that can be frozen and that kind of stuff. Your fresh produce, obviously not, but then I get 5% off, and then I do it once a month down there, too. And then I get checks at the end of the year from both of them. And then when you have your menu plan, you know what you use in bulk, so you can get a 10% discount on cases. So once you start to do some of that stuff, you can really make it more affordable. And then reading your labels, because less on the label is more. Like if you remember the labels, the Pillsbury had the most labels, and then the gluten-free had a little less, and then the homemade had the least. So when you look at it, it should reflect exactly what you would use to make it. If it's bread, it should have like, whole grain, it should have yeast, it should have maybe a little sugar or something, and then water. So like if you have 14 ingredients, find something that has less ingredients, and it's going to be healthier. And if I can't read it, I don't buy it. So, getting kids to eat. Benjamin is a trooper. He'll eat anything. Yesterday he was licking the honey bottle in my pantry. I found him. He's like, oh, I guess I had some honey on the side. So, and he is like my #1 chef. He didn't cook any of the stuff for today, but he is like up on the cupboard, mixing and stirring and doing everything with me. And so that's fun. And like Lily just created these, or started making these cookies that are amazing. But she did it all by herself. She just went on the internet, found a grain-free cookie, and zipped it up all herself. So, when you empower them to do that stuff, now it's better because they can actually do it. Like before, like, don't play with my stuff, it's very expensive. But now they actually create things that are good. So you want to make it fun. If you have kids, make it fun. If it's not, if you just sit down at your table, no one's going to eat. They're not going to. So making it fun. We used to have exercise balls at our table because they have to sit and stabilize themselves, and so they don't wiggle, if wiggling bothers you. And so, that kind of stuff. They have the little seats. You can put, like, their little rubbery things. You can get them, like, at IKEA. They have the bumps and knobs. You put that on the chair, and they just, like, and they sit much longer. We used to set a timer for 20 minutes. You couldn't get up. 20 minutes till the timer went. We started at 10 and worked our way to 20. And then everyone has to go around and share the best part of their day, blah, blah, blah. And now with 7 of us, that usually takes up all our time. So now everyone just stays about 20 minutes, even if they're done eating, and they'll be like, can I be done? I'm like, you can be done eating, but you can't get up. So that's our kind of chat times. Serving size with children, we give them way too much food. I have a section in my book on actual portion sizes kids need, but I give my little ones just a dinner plate, and like if we're having mashed potatoes, I'll put like a tablespoon, and then I'll put a couple bites of meat, because like a toddler, that's how much meat they need a day. Now, I don't just give him that, because if he's going through a growth spurt or something like that, he might need more protein, or whatever. So, but he only has, if he eats only that much, I'm okay, because that's all he really needs. If he eats, I make little hamburgers for him, like he might eat a couple, but that's okay too. but if he only eats one, I don't freak out that he didn't eat enough, you know. And then like a little bit, I could give him one piece of broccoli and one whatever, like piece of spinach, like last night. And then he eats his whole spinach, more and more, you know. Then they're asking for more. So then they, you know, the mindset shifts. You know, oh, I want more, that was good. And so just, they don't need as much. Because we used to give them the big dinner plate and a huge thing of potatoes, and then they eat, you know, 3-4 bites, and really that's all they need, and it doesn't look like they touched it. Now, I'm defeated because they didn't eat my food, and they're defeated because I'm telling them to eat, but they're full, and so you get that whole run around. One thing that they like, so if you're making something new, then make one thing they like. I have this Italian salad I make whenever I make something new, because if they don't like it, they'll throw up on the salad. You know, if they like carrot sticks, I have a ton of carrot sticks, so if they don't like the main course, they can eat that. We used to do baseball, or peanut butter we called it, and they had to try their food 3 times, and if it struck out, and their tongue didn't change its mind yet, I don't know why that works, then they could make a peanut butter sandwich. So the last time this happened, my oldest was like, I don't like this, and it was disgusting, I have to say, it was gross. My son, who eats anything, walked in and he looked at the thing and he's like, that looks like elephant intestines, and I'm like, yeah, pretty much, that's what it looked like. And it was like an eggplant thing, it was bad. But I'm like, we're just gonna eat it anyway. So I had a big salad, and they ate the salad, but she's like, I'm hungry and this is gross. And I'm like, well, then you can go eat, you know, make a peanut butter sandwich. So she went and made a peanut butter sandwich. And then all of a sudden, you know, number 2 goes, well, I don't want it either. Oh, Hannah's making second meal. You better talk to her. I want a peanut butter. So she ends up making 4 peanut butter sandwiches and having to clean up everybody because I've already cooked. So now you're making the second meal. It's not having sense because the oldest one sets the tone for everyone below. So that works. But then we just let them make a peanut butter, almond butter, sun butter. We have an assortment of what they can have. And then making it colorful, when someone told me this, I'm like, you've got to be kidding. Like, I'm a mom of 4 kids. I do not have time for a colorful plate. But when I go grocery shop, I cut up my broccoli, I cut up my cauliflower, the things that, like, if I don't, like, people are like, then it doesn't have as much nutrients because you cut it. I'm like, well, better than the trash can because I never have time to, if I don't clean it right when I get it, I don't have time to cut it up and clean it before lunch or whatever. So then I realized, like, all this stuff cut up, wow, it's really easy to throw a few peppers and oh, look at how pretty the plate is. And they do actually eat better when it's colorful. So, not too hard. Getting educated and educating your children. Like my kids, it was, my little son was sitting there and like, Grandpa was there, and he has cow's milk. And so I was like, Grandpa, is that cow's milk? And Grandpa's like, yeah. He's like, well, did you know that cow's milk? And he started like, stop, no, it's okay for Grandpa to eat his cow's milk, you know? And so, but educating them, then they don't want to eat the stuff when they actually know what's happened to it. So that's a good way. And as my girls have gotten older, I've let them watch some of the movies. Like Fresh, I think, is the best movie out there on food. It's not the Food Inc. scare you to death, I'm never going to eat again kind of thing. It's actually a contrast of God's farming compared to conventional. It's very well done. Mixing up your cooking methods. If your kids won't eat, then mix it up. Like, I actually didn't know you could saute green beans. I thought you just took them out of the can and warmed them up, because that's the only green bean I ever had. So I would buy green beans and try to get them as soft and squishy as the ones in the can, and my kids hated them. And then Robin's like, well, saute them. I'm like, you can saute green beans? I'm like, well, who knew? And then she's like, yeah, you could even grill them. I'm like, really? Like, and so now they like, I have all these different ways that I cook vegetables, and they actually like it. So if I cook a vegetable and it bombs and they don't like it, I'll make it a different way. Like I put Brussels sprouts chopped up in my mixed vegetables, and then I roast them, and they get kind of crunchy, and they almost taste like a kale chip. They love them. But if I actually made a whole Brussels sprout, they'd freak out. So, and then you are their best role models. What you do, they'll do, and what you sneak, they'll know. Because like, it's a huge joke at our house. Like about 2 years ago, I bought 2 boxes of Girl Scout cookies. Because like my kids hadn't ever had them. I'm like, we'll just splurge. We're going to just do it. Everyone's healthy, strong, we'll just do it. So Matthew says, Mom, you better put those up there. And he was talking like above the cupboards in my bowls, like for decoration on top. I'm like, why would we put the cookies up there? Well, you know, Dad gets up in the middle of the night and he will sneak them and they will be all gone. And I'm like, no, Dad would never do that. So I put them in the freezer outside the garage because I know I will do that. So I put them out there and I'm like, I'm not going to eat them because we already know what happens with me with gluten, but we'll let them each try one. So then the next day I'm having a weak moment. I'm like, oh, forget it. I'm just going to have a Girl Scout cookie. I go, 1 whole box is gone. And I'm like, they're so right. They do know what they know what you do, even in secret. So, and I just never give up. Hannah would not eat potatoes, and white potatoes aren't really the healthiest thing for you, actually. But back then I didn't know that, and I was like, she will eat potatoes. And I put it on her plate for a year in various forms, and now she will eat them. But it took a year before she would eat them. She still won't eat French fries. She thinks they're disgusting, which is private. But so just never give up. Keep giving it to them. Like most kids need 20 exposures to a new food. One thing, Benjamin wasn't a vegetable eater, which I thought was weird because we eat vegetables all the time and everybody else is eating them, and why isn't he? And I was reading this article and it said sometimes toddlers in that age will not eat cooked vegetables because the smell will overpower. And so I was like, oh, so I started giving him raw, and he chows now. Just chows raw vegetables. He doesn't really like them cooked yet, but raw he'll eat them, which is actually better. So just never give up and keep trying things. So this is an example of what my menu plan looks like. And this is the one I can email you, or one similar to this, that I have breakfast, lunch, dinners, and then I have a school, like an afternoon snack, and then I have an evening bedtime snack too. So that's that. And then this is kind of an example of my shopping list. It's hard to see it because it's so little, but I have Trader Joe's, the Co-op, and Costco, and what I buy at each one of the stores. So then I just go. And all I have to do now, because I have them all made, is I highlight what I'm out of. So it's kind of like, oh my gosh, it's like way extreme. But now it's so super easy. I don't even have to make a grocery list. I just highlight, and I know what I need. And so success to eating healthier is start by picking healthier options. Like we had an extreme case where we had to throw out our whole pantry and start over. If you have that, then find someone to help you, because that's a hard thing to do. But if you're just starting to switch into a healthier diet, like make better choices, when you go to the store or whatever. And do it slowly, because if you do that, like the moms that I work with, a lot of moms, and we'll put together a menu plan and shopping list and all of that, and we try to go to like what their kids are used to, and we'll start with gluten-free pancakes, and then we'll move to like a grain-free pancake, and like if you do it in shifts like that, the kids just kind of naturally adapt. If you go from a Bisquick to a grain-free, you get total revolt. It's hard for an adult to do that, let alone kids. So just healthier options, and then continue to learn. The more you learn and get educated about food, the more you'll be convicted to keep going and getting healthier and healthier. And like you'll look back and go, oh my gosh, I thought that was healthy and it really wasn't. You just keep getting, and I keep going, I'll never find any more recipes, and then, oh my gosh, we find tons more. So, and then before you know it, your diet will be transformed and you will be super happy, healthy, and strong. And so slow and steady, like story says, will win the race. And so I do have a blog, and on my blog I have a lot of grain-free, gluten-free, healthy, naturally sweetened, egg-free, a lot of them because we don't do much eggs. And you can just go on there and peruse through that and get some ideas for some new things if you'd like. So if you want to sign up right here, I will put you on my blog, and I will also email you that stuff. And I want to kind of share with you quickly what was over here, because I like to do it after. And so this was raw goat cheese. And so when you have a raw cheese, it hasn't been heated, and so you still have all the enzymes and all of that stuff in there. We can't do any cow dairy at all, and we've just started doing a little bit of, if you've ever read The Maker's Diet, Jordan Rubin has a farm, and they have cows that have been imported, and they have a different casing, and that's our problem. So we've actually been able to eat a little bit of the cheese and this kefir drink, and actually my daughter, who has not been able to gain weight, that's one of the things we're working on with her. She actually is starting to absorb because of some of the nutrient stuff we're doing with Dr. Rob. And so we've started to add in amasi, which is like a kefir drink, but it has this different casing in it, which is really nice because she came in the other day, she's like, you can't see my ribs. And I'm like, yes, yay, you're starting to absorb. And that's just helping it because it's tons of fat.
Is casing the bacteria inside?
No, casein is actually the protein in the milk. The bacteria in your stomach is the probiotics they talk about, like your acidophilus.
I miss the cows.
Oh, the cow's stomach. No, it's a casein.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the protein in the cow. Yeah, there's whey protein and then there's casein. So, and then some people are allergic to the lactose, which is a sugar. So ours is the casein. And so we can do goat's milk, and that's why I knew the goat's milk has the same casein as this other cow does. So that's why we tried it. So that has been working well. So if anything that's raw, it hasn't been pasteurized. The other company also doesn't. They do a really low heat, so the enzymes don't get killed in it, and so that's why they can digest it better. So whenever you're doing cheese, try to find the raw grass-fed, like Trader Joe's has a raw grass-fed cheese. And actually, I always feel better buying cheese from other countries. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad, because it's not very local, but if I had a farmer here that made cheese. The kale is just raw kale, and then it's a honey mustard. It's not honey mustard though. It's mustard with maple syrup, apple cider vinegar. So it's got a lot of good healthy things. Shallot and garlic. So you have a lot of immune boosting things in there too. So that's a really good one. The homemade granola is gluten-free oats, and then it's got a bunch of seeds and nuts, and then it's got coconut oil mixed with a little maple syrup, and then you just toast it. And the coconut milk yogurt, there's a lot of different, if you can't do dairy, there's coconut milk yogurt, there's goat yogurt, there's buffalo yogurt. They're all different textures and whatever. We do a little bit of that kind of yogurt, but a lot of it still has a lot of stuff in it. You know what I mean? So that for us is like a treat to have the yogurt with that. That's like a treat. Like we do that once every 2 weeks. That's what they get. So that's fun. The muffins, they have beets in them and lemon, which is good to talk about fine for your liver. And I do have chocolate chips. We actually eat them without chocolate chips now, but at the beginning, my kids couldn't do it without the chocolate chips. And it's a gluten-free flour, and the gluten-free flour that I use for this is Bob's Red Mill All-Purpose. And when we started, we actually didn't know and liked it because we could taste like the bean flavoring in it. But now everybody's fine with it, and it has a lot more protein and stuff than the other white rice flours, because it's made with fava bean and garbanzo beans and different bean flour, so you have the proteins from that. The cookies are an almond cookie, and I told you what was in that already. And then this is just, this one you can do with the coconut cream cheese or without. I just mix equal parts of honey and coconut oil. Yeah, and then I put a little vanilla in it. Stir it up, and that's usually our frosting for most things. We don't frost a lot of things, but cupcakes are cupcakes without frosting for birthdays, So that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what you make. Does anyone have any questions or anything?
Do you have recipes for those?
Yes, I will email them to you because my computer or my printer broke last night when I was printing. So put your email down there, and I'll email you the menu and then the recipes that go with it. So.
When you're baking, have you ever tried moving from, the traditional flour and then replacing that with some of these other flours you're talking about, and then your kids maybe don't realize you're getting rid of the white flour slowly, or does that not work?
It works perfectly.
Okay.
So even if you go from like white flour to like gluten-free flour, like King Arthur's, it's a white flour. Like at Christmas time, I make my sugar cookies with King Arthur's flour because it's white flour, and my sugar cookies turn out like sugar cookies. But that's like a once-a-year thing. But if you're transitioning, that might be it, because then they get into the gluten-free piece, you get rid of that gluten. And then from there, you can transition into some of the other ones like Bob's Red Mill, and you can just kind of mix them up. And if you kind of, when you're nursing and then you switch to milk or whatever, you mix half and half and then 3/4. And just start mixing more. Like when we went to whole wheat, that's what I did, was I used, because first we did wheat when I was trying to be healthy. And some people can handle wheat, we just can't. But I didn't know at that time we couldn't. So I would do like white flour, half white, half wheat. And then I transitioned into all wheat. And then we went from wheat to gluten-free, which was like back to white. And then we went from that into like grain-free. So most of the stuff I do now is grain-free. So I use coconut flour or almond flour are the base of most of them.
Okay.
So, but the Bob's Red Mill is kind of a good mix in between. And some of the stuff you can't do grain-free really well. So then you can do that. And you can mix, in my cookbook I do a lot of mixing brown rice flour with millet flour. And that is a good transitionary kind of step. And you can get them both in bulk, so it's affordable as well.
Getting back is a really good thing, and we get it up with cameras and baking. So based on what you're saying is that's not quite getting really to where we need.
Yeah, it's a step in the right direction. And with Pamela's, are you dairy free or just gluten free?
We don't.
Oh, you don't.
Have to be.
Okay.
We're just making.
You're just making better choices because the Pamela's does have dairy in it, and that's why we don't do that one. And it still has a lot of the rice flours. So like the Bob's Red Mill would have less of the rice flours and moving more into the bean flours. And like the dough does not taste good, but once you bake it, you can't tell the difference.
Okay.
So that would be maybe a good next step. And maybe play around with some grain-free stuff Yeah.
You mentioned pink salt way back.
Yeah.
Is that the sea salt or is that something else?
Yeah, it's a Himalayan, isn't it? Not Himalayan, it's from Hawaii. It's a Hawaiian pink
There's
salt.
some from Hawaii and there's some from the Mediterranean. So the salt that we sell has the Hawaiian and the Mediterranean salt in it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's saltier than salt, like, I think it is. We haven't had to use as much, because like, I got the bottle, and like, in a month, we've gone through like a fourth of the bottle, and I'm a saltaholic, so I was really excited when he said, you can use as much of this as you want. I'm like, yes, because I love salt, and so, on everything. But yeah, and it's really good.
I have another question too. So do a lot of your recipes incorporate legumes? I mean, will your kids eat those? For my kids, that'd be the hardest thing.
Not necessarily. We do use some bean flours, like I make.
It's about red melody.
Yeah, and like my chicken or not chicken, fish, like we do fish and chips. So I make sweet potato fries, and we do like home fries, and I put grapeseed oil, put them on a pan with sea salt, and then I will put, I dip it in almond milk, and then I dip it in garbanzo bean flour, and I put like some like Italian seasonings in there, and then I fry it in coconut oil. So it's all like healthy, yeah. And then you can get wild caught fish, you know, very reasonably. Like even the co-op salmon is not bad, you know, and it's on sale usually for like $9.99 a pound for wild caught. You want to make sure your fish is wild caught. You don't want farm raised. So, yeah.
You mentioned before that your daughter noticed somebody had a product with lead in it. Do you guys think there are other products or something?
Well, like makeup kind of stuff, or I do my own laundry soap. I've been trying to make dish soap, it just doesn't work. If anyone has like one to put in the dishwasher that won't make my stuff slimy, that'd be great. But the laundry soap I do make homemade, and I think that's on my blog. I think I just put it on there not too long ago. I have 2 blogs, and we shut one down, so I never remember if it's on my new one or not. But yeah, so I have a laundry soap that I make homemade. The whitening for my daughter's teeth is strawberries mixed with baking soda, and she's got a YouTube video on how to do it. She's got 9,000 views. Can you believe that? Like 9,000 views. So now she's doing beauty basics boot camp or something, and she's teaching people how to take care of their skin healthy. So, so some of that toothpaste I've been stuck on, because anything that's like healthier, they're like, I'm not brushing with sea salt, you know, that kind of stuff. We tried the thieves oil one, and they're like, really, this is so gross. So that one we haven't been too successful on either. We just kind of keep bopping around. So I do some stuff homemade. More, I just learned how to make. I'm going to make for the first time my own vanilla. I didn't know how to make vanilla. So easy. Because I met with my girlfriend the other night, and we taught together. Talk about a God story. We used to teach kindergarten together for 1 year. In that year, she was pregnant, had a baby who had major heart issues and all this stuff, had heart surgeries, all this. Ends up getting like major respiratory stuff. They're trying to get her diagnosed for cystic fibrosis because all the medical treatments cost a lot of money, and she doesn't have the gene, so none of the insurance will pay for it. This whole mess. So she then finally calls me because on top of she has ADHD out of control, I'm sure from all the medication. So she calls me and we got together and talked about food probably 2 years ago. She started changing her diet and she's gotten better and better and better. And then she went to this doctor, and I mean, she hasn't gotten more than a month being out of the hospital since she was born, and she's almost 8. And so she went to this doctor, and like we've just been praying and praying for her to get healed. It pretty much was like a touch from God, because she was doing some chiropractic, she was doing what she should be doing, but nothing was really helping. And so she went to this doctor to try to get this diagnosis for cystic fibrosis. And he's like, I think she has reflux-induced pneumonia. Take Prevacid or something. And she walked out going, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. So she goes home, she gets the prescription. She hasn't been in the hospital for 4 months for being on Prevacid. And we just met, and she goes, so now I got to figure out what's causing her not to have enough acid in her stomach. You know what I mean? So she kind of knows what the root is, but now, so we're all praying, she wants to see that. That's what we were just talking about Thursday night. I'm like, this is what you need to do. She's like, I was thinking that, and now I think you're right. So, you know, and so just a next step in her journey, she's like, yep, I've decided I'm writing a book. And I'm like, really, what's your book going to be called? She goes, How ADHD Changed My Life, or Saved My Life. She said, because through all this stuff, like, we're never going to have cancer, we're never going to have anything, you know, because of the way they eat and the way they take care of themselves. She's like, so I've totally changed the next generation by doing this. And I'm like, you're so right. So pretty exciting. So it's fun to hear stories like that when people, you know, even if it happens to be a medical thing, but she has the knowledge of the natural, and now she goes, oh wait, not enough stomach acid, why is that? You know, so now she has hope, like, I have hope we can get her off this medication, and she'll just be, you know, so it's pretty exciting. So.
How about spices? Do you recommend going to like a co-op or anything in natural spices?
You know what, like the spices I use a lot of I buy in bulk from my buying club. And then the other ones I usually just, because I don't use a lot of those, I buy them at the co-op because I can buy a tablespoon. You know, like I use lavender for one thing, so I can buy a teaspoon of it, and it's like 2 cents, you know, stuff like that. And the ones I use more frequently, I buy just from my buying club. You know, and I've used some from, like Costco has a sea salt, garlic sea salt, and I feel like that's gonna be better, you know, than some, you know, and the co-op has one as well, so I kind of go back and forth with those, but basically now I buy them from either the co-op, but then I just buy what I need. I don't have a storage of spices, other than like the ones I use regularly, which is like a handful, and those I can get organic. And the place I do the co-op is Azure, it's A-Z-U-R-E, and you just go online and I think they'll just connect you with who's in your area. And what happens is, like they email, okay, what do you want? And so you put almond, like you put down what you're gonna have and it goes to everybody. And then it'll be like, oh, so I'll say, I want almond flour. I'm gonna take 5 pounds of almond flour. Someone else will go, I'll take 5, I'll take 5, I'll take 5. It's a 25-pound bag. So the week before that we're ordering, the person who coordinates it all, which I have no idea, she does that, she'll be like, okay, we need 5 more pounds of almond flour or we're not ordering it. So then someone will go, okay, I'll take 5 more. You know, and then all I do is come to her house and it's all packaged ready for me and I give her my money and she gives me all my stuff in my little 5-pound packages or whatever. And like coconut sugar, it's the exact same one I buy at the co-op. And what I get for 5 pounds, I pay for 1 pound at the co-op. So, and coconut sugar was what was in the muffins and that stabilizes your blood sugar. Or it doesn't, it's a lot, it doesn't affect the glycemic, the glycemic as much. So, you know, you can start to do, so if you like do sugar, then you can go to raw sugar, and then from raw sugar you can go, you know, it just keeps making steps into, like the coconut sugars are better. Even the maple syrup and honey still tends to spike your sugar. But if you pair sugar with a fat, like if your kids are going to a birthday party, give them nuts or something before they go, or beef sticks or whatever. Because if you pair it with a fat or a protein, it'll help kind of stabilize and not get the blood sugar spikes.
What do you work with essential oils ever?
I just started doing some essential oils, and we actually, Hannah made like, we had some friends over, so she made dessert, and they were these grain-free cupcakes, and then she made a chocolate ganache out of dark chocolate, coconut oil, and we didn't have any peppermint extract, so she went and got the, I don't know, it's Young Living, I think. Yeah, I don't like sell it, I just get it. And she put 2 drops of that in it, so it was peppermint flavored. So good. So, yeah, but I do use, that's the other thing, is I use the thieves cleaner. So I do 1 capful of thieves oil in a spray bottle, and that's what I clean my whole house with. I make it a little stronger when I store it on the bathroom. But like I sprayed it on my walls, you know, you can imagine what my walls look like with 5 kids. And like literally the marker ran down the wall. I was shocked. I'm like, wow, that actually works. So what's that called? It's Thieves Oil by Young Living. And it's good for your immune system too, because I didn't really believe, I don't know why I don't believe some stuff, but I was like, okay, how can just drinking, so it said, it said what I read, like you can drink it, and I'm like, okay, so drink 1 drop. So we got the belly bug in our house, which is really nice when your kids are healthy, because like my kids throw up once and they're done. Like they maybe don't feel good for 24 hours, but that's usually like, very rarely do my older kids throw up more than once. Benjamin got it a little more intense this year, but he's building his immune system still. So I was like, I am not getting this. Like each year I never get it, but I get queasy. I'm like, I am not getting, I'm gonna do this thieves oil. So every day I did a shot with water and 1 drop, and oh, it's intense. I didn't get it though. I didn't even get queasy, not a bit, the whole time. I'm like, yay, add that to the regimen. So it's fun. Well, I will be here if anybody has any questions. If you want to talk to me about anything. Thank you all for coming and giving up your Saturday morning to